Hey everybody, it's Julie. Thanks for joining me today for a Bible journaling process video. I'm using By the Well for God and their new devotional kit called Liars and Thieves. I do have an unboxing video and I will link that in the description box below as well as up in the right hand corner. And it takes us, day one takes us to Habakkak 1:8. This devotional is just so powerful. It talks about the things that the enemies that Satan uses to steal our happiness, our joy, our peace. And what are those things? And this devotional is just so powerful. And today's, it's entitled Fear and Worry. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'm just putting up some of the goodies that are in the kit, putting them back into the package. And I've picked out some of the things that I want to use for today's process video. So I'm going to use this stamp set, which is one of the extras that you could purchase with it, and it's called Lift My Eyes. So I'm going to use the wolf theme and then also that mountainous set. And I'm going to be using some alpha stickers and some Pitt Big Brush Markers and then a die cut, and then we'll see what else I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Habakkuk 1:8 says, "Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves." This is talking about the enemies of Israel's people, the Chaldeans. And Satan uses enemies like fear and worry. That's what this devotional, the day one in this devotional, was about, fear and worry, and how they are fiercer than the evening wolves. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let me just tell you what I'm doing here on screen. I have gotten that mountain scene set, that stamp, and because it's the first time I'm using it, I am rubbing it on my hand to get some of the oils onto it so it just picks up the ink better. I'm using some VersaFine Black Onyx ink. This ink will bleed through to the back side of the page, so just prep your page if you don't want to mess with that. I didn't prep my page. I don't worry about it most of the time. Sometimes I do, but I didn't here. So this is an unprepped page. And since this is a big block, a big stamp, I had to use a big acrylic block. These photopolymer stamps do need to be mounted on acrylic blocks, so they just will cling to the block. So you can see I stamped that along the bottom, and now I'm going to use a series of Pitt Big Brush Markers. Now, Lori at By the Well for God does a wonderful job giving you a color chart of the markers that you can use, and also the neo colors and distress oxides, all those kinds of things. She'll give you the coordinating colors, the numbers, so that you know exactly what colors you should use to coordinate with the colors that come in this kit. So I picked some up, and she also has a special deal. When you buy 4, you get 1 free. So that's a great deal. You really can't beat that price. So I'll have all those linked, and I'm using some of these colors. I just picked out the ones that kind of matched that sticker over there. And what I'm going to be doing is just coloring in with a series of lines. And I'm going to speed this up in just a moment because this is a little bit of a process. It takes time because you want to be careful, because I don't want to go out of the lines, and I want a very thin line, and I just layer it. So it has that stratus looking effect, and it's going to look really pretty. You just layer the colors, and I do alternate the colors, and sometimes I come back. It's not just a straight alternating. I do come back and reuse some of the colors even out of order, just so that they're not perfect. I don't want it to look perfect, but I just think it looks really cool as it's developing, as it's coming to life there. And the good thing about these markers is you can actually still read the text through them, and they are not, they are waterproof. They do not bleed when water gets on them. So you'll see in a few moments I'm going to be watercoloring around it, and these inks just stay put. So I'm doing a background scene here, and what I'm focusing on in this page is about the worry and the fear that can sometimes just overtake us. And that's what this Bible passage, what the prophet Habakkuk was talking about with the Israelites, the enemies that had risen up and that were the Chaldeans were overtaking the Israelites. But in this passage, specifically down in verse 12, I love that. It says, "Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die." So even though it's talking about how powerful and fierce the evening wolves are, and the horses that press on and they come from afar, and the horses come so quickly, they're swift, and they fly like an eagle swiftly to devour. These things, fear and worry can just happen so quickly in our lives. It can just pop up in a moment's notice, and it can be gripping and overtaking. But we have the promise, as it says here, that God is everlasting. He is the Holy One, and we shall not die. God has the victory. I love what the devotional says, that evening wolves, that's when they come out, and that's when they're the fiercest. But they are afraid of lions, and they're afraid of light and fire. And God is the Lion of Judah, and God is the consuming fire. That's just so powerful. God is victorious. So on screen here, I've taken the watercolors that come with the kit, and I've used them to give a little bit of a background to the mountains, just some sky, and then a little bit of splattering. So I dried that. And now I'm taking one of the die cuts, the wolf die cut, and I'm going to put that up in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to spell out my title. So you'll watch how this process works. I'm using the little alpha tiles. And since the verse talks about the fierce wolves, and the passage, the devotional this time, session 1, talks about fear and worry. So I decided to say fierce fear and the wolves of worry. So just to have that alliteration, and that's to remind me about fear and worry and how fierce, how they're like these fierce wolves. So I'm taking this die cut and I'm sticking it down there, and it's going to be behind the words. But I don't like having floating die cuts just in random places, like they're floating in the air. So I'm going to anchor that by putting a little bit of watercolor around it, like sky. And then because it's got some of the white edge, I'm coloring around that with the paint too. Just, I'm not getting it too wet, just a little bit of that same blue that I used at the bottom. And then, because it still looks like they're floating, as soon as you give it that brown at the bottom, that little shadow, it makes it grounded. That's the ground. That's the anchor. So just give it like some gray or brown at the bottom to give it a ground. Give it something to land on, a foundation. We all need a foundation. There's a spiritual lesson there too. So now I'm using my Bible mat to help line up my letters, and it says fierce fury and wolves of worry. And I'm using now the larger alpha tiles that have that stratus pattern in it that will match the mountains, and I'm placing those on there. Now you can see I kind of bend them, which was not a good idea for these because it leaves a fold mark, but I fixed that by coming in with one of the markers. I'm filling in now with my pen some of the words, and here you can see where I fixed it just with one of the markers, just some of the color that got kind of white when I folded it. And I'm going to outline the words, the letters, so that they pop off, and I'm going to do some journaling too. Now this particular piece right here is another die cut from the set, and there's also a stamp that matches that, Liars and Thieves. But I decided I wanted to use the die cut so that I could use this really cool piece of rope, this texture rope that came with the kit, and I want to layer it behind it because it's kind of like how we can become entangled in fear and in worry. So I wanted to use this texture rope, and I separate it into very thin strands, and I just pull it all apart. So you can actually get a lot of this out of that piece that came with the kit. And I just pull it apart and bundle it up, and then I'm going to use one of my Pitt Big Brush Markers to give an outline to this piece because it's white, and so it stands out a little bit. I'm going to use some double-sided foam tape to adhere to the back of that. And then if I push that down, even through the rope, through that texture, that fiber, it will stick. So the fiber, the rope, is sticking out from behind it, and that reminds us that the fear, the worry can entangle us. It can grip us. So it says, my title says here, fear, fierce fear, and wolves of worry are liars and thieves. So that goes along with the whole theme of the kit. And then I'm going to do my journaling to talk about how God is victorious, though. And I underline my verse. And this really is a simple page. The process down at the bottom, the coloring of the mountains, is what took the longest. So this devotional kit is really good. I'm going to do, I'll do a few process videos throughout the month as I work through this devotional. But I will be posting on in the Facebook group and also on my Instagram. So check that out. I have that link below in the description box. So I take one of the bow clippies that came with the kit and I untie it because I want to do it as a bow and not as kind of like a stand-up. I want it to do it more horizontal than vertical. And I take one of those pieces of string and I tie that in with it just to give it a little more interest. And then I'm going to tie that up at the top. Now you get some faux washi strips in the kit and I'm going to cut that down. I actually cut 1/4 of it. And then I attach that at the top, and that one matches those same stratus patterns that are in the mountain. And I pulled out the little tab, and I put it at the top. At first, I thought I wasn't going to use it, and then I decided I'm going to. So that's my page. You'll see in the still shots that I do add that tab up at the top, and you can see how I've added my journaling. That's it for the page. If you have any questions or comments about it, leave them in the comments section. I'll be sure to check those out. Check out the description box, and it has a link for all the products that I've used. Thanks so much. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Take care. Bye-bye.